Okay, let me walk over here. Hey everybody, it's Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini, my little placeholder to focus on my face because I am riding solo today. If you can see me and hear me, let me know in the chat box. I don't have a helper here today, so I'm hoping all of this so far has worked fine. Hi Kat, tuning in. Hey Diane, she says, hey everybody from Long Island, New York, tuning in. Awesome. Hey Margie, tuning in from Wisconsin. Hey girl. Let me know if y'all can see me and hear me. I just want to make sure that I did this thing right. Y'all, before I went live, I was cracking up because my husband was walking me through how to set up everything, and I was laughing to myself thinking, this is why I can't work for anybody. I was like, stop talking to me like I'm an intern. And he's like, you're not the intern. I know you're the boss, but but I don't want you to mess it up, so he was walking me through the steps. Okay, can y'all, Patty says, I can see and hear you and almost in focus. This was hard for me to do, to like actually focus my face, but am I in focus here? Hopefully it's close enough. It looks, I'm maybe 10 feet away from the computer, but it looks like I'm kind of in focus. So hopefully I am. Thank you. All right, so everything looks to be working-ish for me. And so let's go ahead and get started. This might be a shorter one. We are fixing to get a really, 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 really bad storm that starts now. It's really gray right now, so if hopefully I don't lose power or anything in the next 45 minutes to an hour or so that we can get through our Fiber Friday without these thunderstorms messing with us. All right, so let's start off with some spinning stuff. We're gonna do spinning, knitting, crochet. Heads up, I know those of you that are crocheters have been waiting forever for me to even say the word crochet. So I'm here to show you and share with you an upcoming project. So just stay tuned. If you're watching the recording, keep watching if you're into crochet and you wanna work on something. Okay, thank you. Y'all say I look good. I literally have no makeup on, just a little lip gloss. So here is the t-shirt that I'm wearing. It says hook plus yarn equals magic. And these are some new shirts that we added to the shop. I've been sending out the information on my emails and on social media and stuff. But because Fiber Fridays are only the first Friday of each month, I don't think I mentioned these last time because I don't think they were in the last time we had a Fiber Friday. So we have their, what I call my magic formula t-shirts, and we have one for sewing that says fabric plus thread equals magic. The crochet one says hook plus yarn equals magic. And we also carry the knitting ones that say needles plus yarn equals magic. The crochet and the knitting ones come in 3 different colors in a bunch of different sizes. So if you don't see your size under a specific color of the t-shirt, select from the drop-down box on our online shop one of the other colors, and we may have your size in the other colors. And I think we have sizes, I want to say extra small or small on some, all the way up to 3XL. Okay, and the one that I'm wearing here is a large. All right, so that's that. We have those in stock. If anybody wants to check them out, remember that our online shop, you can always find it and shop with us for whatever stuff that we do carry that I oftentimes mention on the videos at craftygemini.com/shop. Okay? All right. Welcome everybody. Great. We have more people tuning in, so let's go ahead and start. So first up on my list is spinning progress. So I have been, good. It shows up pretty good here. This is the electric eel wheel 6.0. It's an electric e-spinner. Some people call it a spinning wheel, but there's no wheel here to like actually spin. There's no treadle stuff, right? So it's just like an on and off little switch here. And so I wanted to kind of share with y'all the progress on this bobbin from the Rolags that I made from an Advent that I bought last year. Around December I got it. And so we made a bunch of different little Rolags, the kids and I, and I've been spinning on this. So this one is actually, notice, I don't have a plug up like an electric cord. These cords come out of the machine or out of the e-spinner, and I bought them from my friend Vicky, who has an online shop where she sells them, and the link to that is in the video description box if you're watching us on YouTube. Sorry that my husband's not here to help me and put it in the chat box on Facebook, but on my Facebook page, I did go ahead and share the link to the YouTube one. So if you just click on that, it'll take you to the YouTube video, pop open the description box, and you'll see all the links and stuff mentioned there. So this, I wanted to share something with y'all because my friend Vicky sent me a battery pack for this. And actually, the other day went ahead and tightened up the 4 screws that are on the base so that the bottom wouldn't slide off, but the battery pack is in there. Anyway, it's a battery pack that's just like a charger box. If any of you have those charger boxes that we use to like take with us if you're out all day and you don't have access to power to charge up your phone, you know what I'm talking about, like those charger boxes, that USB ones. And so there's one of those under here and it plugs into here so that, I mean, I was spinning in the car, obviously in the passenger seat, but I spin in the car, I leave it in a tote bag, and I was spinning at my son's soccer game. So that was super fun because I can fit it in a tote and take it with me. Let me see if I have it on. Okay, so I turned it on there so that you all can kind of, this is a better shot, I think, from how I've had it before, just to show you a little bit of it, of how I spin on here. And I'm happy to announce that I have sped up. So I think when I first demoed this in the last Fiber Friday, I was using the speed at like a 2, and now I'm up to like a 3. So I turned it on. I'm just gonna press this little, let me put it here so you can see. And then it just starts. And it's so quiet. My mic is like really close to it, but I bet y'all can't even hear it. So I'll speed it up to a 3. So quiet. And I actually, when I'm in the passenger seat, I just put it on my lap. And my daughter, of course, rolls her eyes and says, I've reached a whole new level of crafty ridiculousness. Spinning yarn in the car. It's so much fun, though. So this is my EEW 6.0 electric eel wheel 6.0 e-spinner. Isn't that fun? And it stops on a dime. So if you have to, take a call, pick up your phone, stop for a second, you can easily do that. I'm going to turn it like this a little bit just so y'all can see how it spins. I'll do a little more, and let me see if I can spin and look at the chat box. Oh, Margie says she got a maroon colored tee, the Heather maroon color, and it's so soft and comfy. She loves it. I am so glad to hear it, Margie. I love mine. I'm like, people probably, if they see me out and about, are like, does this girl have any other clothes? I just wear the sewing one, the knitting one, the crochet one, because now I have like 3 different designs on the front of the shirt, but I have them in like 3 different colors, and of course multiples of each in different sizes. You know how sometimes if you have a t-shirt that you're wearing with like jeans or jean shorts, sometimes you want it to fit like a little bit more fitted. So I'll do that with the size large ones like I'm wearing now. And then if I need it looser, or I'm going to use it as a workout tee to wear over leggings or biker shorts or something, I'll wear the extra large. So yeah, I probably have like 8 or 9. If you see me in the streets with my shirts, my Magic Formula crafty shirts, just know I have a lot of them. So, I'm getting into some fun bling here, some of this Angelina fiber. It's so funny because I like the drafting part of it, and I totally forget sometimes. I'll be like all the way back here, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Feed it into the into the wheel or the e-spinner so that it can wind on the bobbin. But super duper fun. Cute, right? So I will be taking this with me to a retreat that I'm going to attend June 2nd through the 5th. And that's actually going to be my birthday present to myself. I will be 39 on June 1st. So shout out to all my June Geminis and May Geminis too. So that weekend, I'm going to a retreat that is for circular sock machine knitting. If y'all have seen any of my posts, I know I shared video clip and stuff in past Fiber Friday episodes. I have an Erlbacher Gerhardt Speedster circular sock machine, and this is my first retreat where the entire retreat, it's not sewing, it's not quilting, it's not knitting, it's actually cranking socks on a CSM, a circular sock knitting machine. So I'm super excited about that. My friend Stacy's coming from Texas, and we're gonna go together. So that's gonna be super fun. It's gonna be here in Florida nearby. So I was, all that to say, I plan to take my EEW 6.0, and some of my friends actually, we were texting each other like, hey, is anybody else bringing their e-spinner? And I'm like, definitely. So if we're not cranking socks, or maybe we learned a new technique and our brain is a little bit gone, boom, switch to spinning yarn. So that's what I'm going to be doing, especially since it's so portable. And now that I have my little battery pack in here, actually, let me turn it off so it doesn't drain the battery. But the battery pack I put in here was fully charged, I want to say almost 2 weeks ago. And before I screwed down the screws on the 4 corners, I checked it to make sure that I could demo it tonight for y'all without it dying. And I think the battery pack has maybe 5 or 6 dots. You know how when they're charged, they'll all be green, and then as you use it, it'll show you like 4 dots or 3 dots, right? Literally, it's only down to 1 dot less than being full, and it's been like a week and a half. And I've spun in the car, in the soccer game, a ton. So that battery pack is going to last me a hot minute, which I'm super happy about. So that is that. And then I'm going to be going to that retreat. Has anybody ever been to a circular sock knitting machine? Oh, Patty says, so no Fiber Friday next month? Is that the Friday? I guess the first Friday would be, let me look it up. So the first Friday would, oh, you're right. I think then I will do the Fiber Friday for June on Friday, June 10th. That way I'll have come back from my retreat and I can give y'all the whole rundown on what we did, what we made, what happened at the retreat. I think that would be super fun. So if y'all are down for that, so am I. So we will have Fiber Friday number 9 for the month of June 2022 on the 10th of June, okay? Oh, awesome. Rita says, my birthday's June 1st too. Yay! Happy birthday, Rita. She says, I won't tell you how old I am. Oh, I'll remember to wish you a happy birthday. So will I, Rita. All right. Let's see. Oh, I had a question up here. Anne was asking, can you then knit right from the yarn that you spin? So you can, but remember that when you spin, what you're making is called singles yarn. It's just one of the plies. If you ever look at the yarn that you use for your crochet or your knitting projects, if you kind of pull it apart, you'll see that it's usually made up of multiple strands, let's say. And so this would be just one strand of the yarn. So if I want something that's going to be sturdier, right, that's going to hold together better, depending on the project you want to use it for, then I would probably want to ply this to another strand of another yarn that I spun. Actually, let me grab a cake that I have here of my hand spun so that I can kind of show you. Obviously, the thinner you spin the individual strands, for lack of a better word. I know the spinners are like, don't call it strand, probably, but I'm just trying to break it down for beginners. The thinner I spin the singles, the thinner the finished yarn will be depending on how many more strands I ply together, right? So like this ball that I made, this is a 2-ply. So this is like 2 strands of yarn that I spun that I then spun together, and it makes it thicker like this. So like this yarn also, you can probably see it a little bit better. I know I'm kind of far, y'all. Sorry that I don't have like the multiple camera angle today since I'm flying solo, but I think maybe you can see that. This is also a 2-ply. One of the strands is a puffy, fluffy, multicolored rainbow yarn, and the other strand that's going around it is a really thin strand that I did. So it makes it look like this kind of thick and thin style of funkier type of art-ish yarn, okay? So these are just, I've only done 2-plies so far since I just started spinning last year. I've only done 2-plies, but yeah. If you wanted to make like a puffy version, let's say like a singles, that's like a little bit thicker and you wanted to make like a light scarf or something like that, you can absolutely knit up from the singles that you spin. You obviously have to finish it though because you don't want it just to come apart. So yeah. Okay. But technically the answer to your question is yes, you can spin directly from the yarn that you spin right there. The singles, one strand of it, okay? Okay. Hey, Alex, welcome. She says, a little late, but I still made it. All right. Let's see. Okay, moving on. So here's something. And I'm glad that we got into this little talk of the yarn and what you can just do right there with it. As you can see, This is just some of my hand spun yarn. And I find that, I remember when I first started spinning and finishing it, and I'm just so happy looking at the yarn. I was like, I don't care if I ever make anything with it. I just love spinning yarn. Well, the novelty of that is kind of a little bit over. I still love it and I still like to look at it, but now I'm like, what else can I make with it, right? And so I went back to my resources guide, my resource library of books. And I have talked about this book before. This is called Yarnitecture, like architecture, but Yarnitecture. And it's by Jillian Moreno. I actually took a class with her, we are in April, it must have been last year, online through Vogue Knitting Live. And everywhere, I mean, every video, every vlog you watch, spinners, everybody recommends this book. So obviously I got it. And I loved it. I talked about it on a previous episode of Fiber Friday for like plying and understanding like how you spin the yarn. If say it's like a multicolored fiber, like a lot of different colors in the same fluffy braid of wool. And depending on how you feed it in and spin it into singles, you'll get a different concentration of those colors, whether they blend or they pool, or you have like stark contrast from one color to the next. Like there's all these different little kind of nuanced techniques that you can use to make the exact yarn that you want, right? And I'm not too much into that. I just like to spin. I like to see pops of color. I'm not so much into learning all that different stuff. But I did take a class so that I can understand how it all comes together. Well, when I came back to this, I was like, yeah, this is the book that I referenced when I was looking at plying multiple single strands of the yarn that I spun together, the finishing technique. If you like thwack it, sometimes they call it. If you like spin it over your head after you soak it and stuff. All these different types of techniques to finish it. But then when I came back to the book, there's actual projects in here, y'all. And this is something that I wanted to mention in case you are also a spinner or maybe you're new to spinning. This book also has 12 patterns included in here for using your hand spun. So like this back chunk of the book is on these different projects. And I thought, you know, what a smart way to include projects in a book that tells you so much about how to make your yarn this way or that way or thicker and what affects the thickness of the yarn and the colors and all this kind of stuff. Because when you have something like this, okay, I spun it, the two single strands, I plied them together. Now, I mean, I used it in a project already to make a hat. But now I'm like, what do I do with this? I found that researching projects to use my hand spun in, it's trickier to match the yarn that I already have made to a project than it is to pick a project and then find a yarn, obviously like buying a yarn that would match it. So that's kind of why I've ended up with all this different hand spun, right? That is not enough to make like a sweater. You know, I'm not spinning up 8 balls like this to make a sweater or anything like that. I just like to spin, I like to make the yarn, and then it's like a little bundle. What can I make with this little bundle? And so I thought going in here, I love that they included projects, or that Jillian included projects in here that feature thick and thin yarn. So when I see a project that features something like that, and let me pull up the one, I mean, there's cardigans in here, there's sock patterns like with hand spun, there's a shawl. And I like it because if it features a yarn that's thick and thin, you automatically know, because it's not requiring a super consistent weight of yarn, that there's going to be some wiggle room there for it to be a little bit bigger or potentially a little bit smaller. So something like a shawl or a scarf or something like that would be good. This one is called the Dye Goddess Pullover, and it's a design by Jillian. There's several designs in here that are by other designers. I don't know if you can see that, but you can kind of see the picture down here of the texture of the fabric and the sweater that the model is wearing here. She has it on this bike here. And so this one, I mean, they give you, because it's assuming that you're going to be using hand spun, she gives you all the information here from the yarn amount in yardage to the gauge to like spiral ply yarn, core yarn, thick and thin yarn, and it has all the wraps per inch and all this kind of stuff and information to help you choose the best hand spun to match that project, you know? So I went in and tagged in a couple of the projects that I want to try from here. There's some smaller ones. I mean, oh, here is that's that sweater. I think you can kind of see the texture in it. But how fun would that be out of something super funky? And y'all, I love color. I don't feel like everything needs to be the same. I will grab like 4 different balls like this and make something like that with like striping across. I don't care. As long as I can be like, I made it. And that's plenty for me. So I just wanted to bring back up the book, Yarn and Texture. If you are looking for projects to make with your hand spun, or you have hand spun, there's small projects in here from like socks to several different shawls. There's even a cardigan, so it's not like a closed up sweater. There's one that's open, then there's another cardigan that has like a button band going down the middle with some lace detail. So I feel like they did a good job like with the balance of 12 different projects, and they vary in skill level that's necessary to complete them, and then with different amounts of your hand spun. So this is definitely another one that I'm going to be revisiting again when I get or when I finish some more of my hand spun, so that I can go in there and pick out projects. Okay. All right. So next on my list is we are going to start a new crochet along soon. Not yet, soon. I still have to put some final touches on it. But let's talk a little bit about the yarn that we have designed this project with, and you'll be happy to know, actually. Well, maybe not. Maybe you won't be happy to know, but this is a bag, a market tote, a crocheted market tote that I designed actually in 2020. And it's just been sitting there. Like, I totally forgot about it. And then my assistant and I were going through different projects, and we've been, you know, weighing our options with different crochet alongs that we could do, running into some issues with techniques to teach and all this kind of stuff. And then I was like, wait, I have a pattern already. So we will be using Karen cotton cakes. Have y'all used these before? And these I think I got at Michael's a couple years ago or something. This is like a self-striping version, super cute colors. And this is just like a solid minty color. And so similar to how it, oh, wool fluff everywhere. Stuck to my lip gloss for sure. So similar to how we did my Loma worsted hat knit along that we did last year at the end of the year, this is going to be similar. So I will be teaching, we will be hosting a crochet along. I will be doing the step-by-step video lessons, teaching you how to make it. And then I also have a Facebook group, in case people don't know. It's called Yarn and Fiber with Crafty Gemini. And if you are on Facebook, obviously the Facebook group is optional. Not everybody has to be in it, but I find that it's another great added resource and some added value. So if you do participate in my knit alongs and crochet alongs, this gives you somewhere to like post pictures of the yarn that you're using, or share progress pictures. Or we just recently had a student from the hat knit along that posted her hat. She said, I had to take it apart a bunch of times, but I finally finished my hat. And there you post the pictures and everybody cheers you on. So it's a great resource for that. This is the market tote that we're going to be making. It's crocheted. You can see that you probably can't even really tell, but the stitching is denser up top for the handle, obviously, so it's thicker and can hold up more. And then I did it so that the bottom is also more densely crocheted, so if you have smaller items, they won't just slip through. Becky's asking, did you say self-stretching? No, I said self-striping. So it's going to be similar to how this yarn is, and that's what they call the yarn, self-striping, meaning it goes from one color to the next in its own stripes. Like, it's just in the length of the yarn. Like, say you have white, it's going to go white, white, white until it starts gray, and then you just keep working with it and it turns to that. So it's not like you're changing yarn for that, okay? But then the body of the toe is more open, and so we're going to be making this little market toe, okay? Remember that yarn stretches, so you'll be able to fit a lot of stuff in here. And I thought this would be a great project going into summer, so like if you're going to outdoor markets, farmers markets and stuff like that. So this is what we will be working on, okay? So stay tuned for details on that. If you want to be kept in the loop, the Facebook group is a great option. 2 is my email newsletter, and we have a newsletter specifically for yarn stuff. So if you're not already on that, check out the link in the description box. So that you get the link and it tells you, you know, the direct page on how to add yourself to the email list just for fiber stuff, yarn, crochet, knitting, all that kind of stuff, okay? Oh, I'm so glad. Lindy says, I love that tote. Great. Mary Grace says, is the crochet along beginner friendly? Yes. So I try to start off, my knit along was beginner friendly, but it's still like you're learning how to knit in the round, how to do decreases and increases, whatever. You know, I cover all the different basics of the different things that you need. But because I teach in step-by-step videos, you can rewind them, replay them, slow them down. And then, of course, like any of my other paid classes, you never lose access to the video. So if you try it and you just can't wrap your head around it no matter how many times you watch the video, I say take a break and come back a week later, start it, try it again, and then of course we're always here to help too in the Facebook group and via email me, that is. Okay? So that is what we're going to be learning to do in the next one, the crochet along, and I think it's right on time for summer. Alex says, OMG, I'm so excited. I loved learning how to knit. Can't wait to learn how to crochet. She says, Vanessa, you're the best teacher ever. I am so glad to hear it. So I'm glad that you learned how to knit with that hat pattern that we did last year. And then the crochet one is going to be great too. So yeah, so Karen, cotton cakes, I have to put some final touches on it. I'm going to be making another one just to work out a couple different little things that I need to do before I can release it for the crochet along, like for class and all that. And I will share suggestions for other types of yarn that you could use, but I thought that this would be fun to do because it's beginner friendly. It's a huge ball of yarn. You only need one of these to make the tote, and it's something that people can readily get without having to like pay for shipping or order yarn from us or something like that for this type of a project. You can likely get it at your local yarn store or a big box yarn shop or craft store, okay? So that is what we're going to be working with. Linda says, cute, did you continuously crochet or did you stop and make the color rows? So that's what I was talking about. That is what a self-striping yarn does. You see how this is? This one, when I make it, is also going to be striped, but you don't change colors. It's just all the colors that are included in the ball of yarn. So this was a neutral one that just had whites and different shades of gray in the one ball, just like this. Okay. All right. So, oh, thank y'all, so sweet. Everybody's like, you're a great teacher. Oh, thank you. That's why I told my husband, stop talking to me like I'm an intern. I'm the boss. I was laughing to myself, y'all, because I'm like, you see this? This is why I can't work for people. I can't have people telling me what to do. I sound like my 7-year-old self. Okay. Next on my list, I have knitting. Are y'all ready? If you tuned in last month for Fiber Friday, I set a challenge and was like, let's do it. Let's tackle one of our WIPs, which means a work in progress, WIP, if you're new to the crafty lingo. I was like, let's take one of our UFOs, which is the same thing as a WIP, right? Unfinished object. UFO or a WIP. And I told everybody, grab one from your stash. It doesn't matter what type of project it was. It could be sewing or quilting. And I was like, let's make some progress on it before I come back for the May episode of Fiber Friday. And here we are in the May episode, and I am so proud of myself. Do y'all remember the Weekender sweater? The Weekender is a pattern by Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits. This thing, I mean, I don't know how many millions of people have made it, but it's been out for a while, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. And everybody and their mama has made this sweater. And so I started this sweater 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, it's a bottom-up sweater. So 3 years ago, I started here. Oh, and I'm covering my mic, and I went to like here in like 2 weeks. And then it just sat there like that. The whole front and back up to there for 3 years. Okay, so last time I showed y'all, it was like the back was halfway done and I hadn't joined for the shoulders or anything. And I was like, I am going to make progress on this. I didn't get to finish it. Oh my gosh, I have wool everywhere. It's like you're inhaling fluff. Okay, but hello, I have a whole sweater, y'all. This side obviously still needs a sleeve, but I finished the front. This is the front. Hold on. Finished the front. I finished knitting the back. You can tell where I picked up. The back was up to here, and this is something I was going to talk about, right? Can you see that line that goes across there? Note to self, note to me 3 years ago, don't wait 3 years to finish knitting a sweater because your gauge changes in 3 years, especially when you continue to knit other stuff and your knitting ends up getting either tighter or looser, typically looser over time. So let's just hope that stark difference, look at that, like you can see the line, y'all. Anyways, after I soak this and finish it, and block it, I hope that you cannot see that line, but I think because with the lighting and the camera and stuff, you can really see. I'm starting to feel bad about this because I can see it even more on camera now. But anyways, your gauge changes. And I feel like I remember somebody telling me this, and I'm like, whatever. Yeah, don't wait 3 years to complete your projects halfway through, but it will be okay because this is going to be just a loose, comfy sweater for me. Dun, dun, dun. A whole sleeve is done to here. I finished the ribbing already, y'all, but I do need to do, I think the pattern calls for a tubular bind off. So that'll be a new technique for me. So I'll probably finish off the sleeve this weekend. And if you're wondering what all these stitch markers are, it was to stay or keep myself in check for decreasing at the correct rounds and counting. Look at me all organized. Counting the rounds and making sure, okay, you're coming up on that round, time to decrease. And so I decreased it. But I would not recommend doing what I did for this pattern for your first sweater. You know, usually they tell you, okay, if you're going to start knitting your first real sweater, like just follow it to the T, pick your correct size, and just don't change nothing. And it's funny because I tell people that in like some quilting projects or handbag making, I always tell my students this, like just make it one time exactly how I designed it. And then once you see how it all comes together, make another one and then start making your little tweaks and changes, right? Well, I don't really follow my own advice because I'm like, come on, I can do this. I'll figure it out. It's just math. So let's begin with what I did. I started off with DK weight yarn, and the pattern is designed for worsted. So worsted is thicker than DK. So I'm already starting off with a yarn that's thinner than it was designed to be. But no worries, I still got gauge. It's just that I used a different yarn because I like this yarn and this is what I wanted to use to make my sweater, okay? So I used the thinner yarn, but I still chose like the finished garment measurements, what I wanted it to be at the bust. Now you have to read like the designer notes. Some of these patterns will tell you it's designed to fit you with like 10 inches of ease or 14, 16 inches of ease. And if you're like me and you make clothes, just the thought of wearing anything that has 10 inches of ease, I'm like, yo, that is way too big, way too loose, right? So I adjusted it and picked the size that I wanted for how I wanted it to fit me at the bust. Great. But I also made it a little bit longer. And because I made it longer and I wasn't super accurate with the shoulder ribbing, it's like you end up being numbers off and then you have to compensate and figure out what do I do now. So for example, when I started this sleeve, you pick up stitches around here. But because I went longer and taller, I ended up having more stitches here than what I was supposed to have for my size. So instead, I chose a higher number of stitches to pick up based on how much room I wanted to have around my biceps, because a lot of times you might pick a pattern that fits you kind of loose, but it's snug here, okay? And I have really large arms and biceps here, so I knew that I needed a larger number. So that worked out. I picked up more stitches than what I would have normally needed for the size that I made. And so then I start off with a wider sleeve. And so even as you're decreasing, you're not decreasing that often that it's like slimming up the sleeve. It's just like little by little by little. Then the next mistake was, and you see how like I change things up or I mess up, but I still keep going because I can fix around it. You know, it's just a matter of like, is it going to fit me a little looser here, a little tighter? I don't care. Is the sleeve going to be a little bit shorter or longer? I don't care. I want to get through the whole project and then understand how all these different things came into play in the finished project, okay? So if this is you, don't just give up because you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to have 80 stitches and I have 72. The project is a wrap. You know, like, don't do that. Just try it on. And if it fits, even if it's a little smaller, a little bit bigger, just keep going, go through it. I know a lot of people will recommend just like pull the yarn back and start again. No, I tell people like if it's not a complete flop, keep going. Because once you finish it, you're able to look back. It's kind of like a quilt. You're like, oh yeah, I messed up here and I messed up there and these points don't match and my binding's a little off. But you know what? I'm happy. I finished the whole quilt. So that's the vibe I'm going for with my sweater. Hey, Jamie, glad you can join us. So there's this thing called Sleeve Island that people, when they start knitting sleeves, they feel like it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. And surprisingly, I did not feel that way. I liked knitting the sleeve because it's a smaller circumference, and I just kept going around and around. Well, what happened to me is that I went around and around and around and around, and I went like 6 inches too long. So because I'm using a different yarn and changing things up and I picked up more stitches and all this stuff affects, I was going by the number of decrease rounds that I was supposed to have, But because I had already made changes and it's a different yarn and a different size needle and all this, I didn't even get to the number of decreased rounds that I needed, and the sleeve was like this long. So I did have to pull back like 6 inches last night, and then I was just like, okay, that's plenty. Let's start the ribbing. So that's why I've left these in here so that when I do the other sleeve, I can match exactly this one to that one, especially since I didn't follow the actual pattern, okay? Yeah, Clovis says I have to adjust my sleeves when sewing because of my biceps. So it's the same thing, right? In sewing, we're cutting the fabric pieces to fit around our body. In knitting and crochet, you're making the fabric as you make the project. So, you know, you have more stuff coming into play here, but I did want to put this on so y'all can see. Okay, this is the back. That's the front. When I tell you this yarn is so squishy, and it's just 100%, and you know what? It's 100% superwash merino wool, which tells me this sucker's going to stretch when I block it, so I don't care because it'll just be a nice, comfy. Oh my gosh, I'm almost done. Okay. Yes, you see Mary Grace, she says, mistakes always help me learn, and Gail says, such good advice. It's true because you don't want to go that far into a that far into a project and just give up. Just keep going. You're going to keep learning, even if it's just like learning how the decrease affects the sleeve, how to start the ribbing, how to change out to another needle. Like those are still techniques that you will need for future projects. So just go ahead and do it. Worst case scenario, give it to somebody else, you know, or just use it to lounge at home. Okay, y'all. Isn't this super cute? Don't mind my super high crew neck t-shirt. I know some people wear it like this because it has like this kind of boaty neckline, but OMG. Not bad, huh? And because it was from the bottom up, it tells you like go all the way till you get to a certain measurement. And you can put it on and see or measure a sweater that you have that you know where you want it to hit and make this part longer before you start. You know, so there's tons of different things. Susan says, yeah, don't wait to do the other sleeve or you might forget what you did. Listen, if I have to count stitches, Susan, I guarantee you the other one will be the exact same length as this. Well, because I know I did take notes on my pattern of how many stitches I picked up. And then I have here the exact number of the decrease rounds. Girl, I'm good. I'll be fine. Well, look at that detail. What? That ribbing? Okay, yeah, I'm like obsessed. And this is how you know this is good. Because with all the little things, and even with changing my yarn and all this stuff, I am itching to finish this one. Dare I say it? So I can make another one. Is that crazy or what? And now that I see, I'm like, why did this take me 3 years? It's not even that serious. Like I could have totally cranked this out in a month, you know? So, I mean, the sleeve was like up to here without the ribbing. So yeah, I pulled all that back. And then I think it tells you like 2 inches of ribbing. And I think I'm there. So I left it just like this so that I can learn how to do that. What did I call it? Tubular bind off is what she does. But I think that's a perfect length, especially if after I block it, it stretches a little bit more. Oh my goodness. Okay, with jean shorts, this is why I picked this color. It's like a gray with sprinkling and speckled of a ton of different colors. And so I thought, you know, this will go good with any colored denim wash jeans. And I do think I was correct. This is so, so fun, okay? Oh yeah, Mary Grace says without the sleeves, that would be cute as a summer top. So I think on the Facebook group and on Instagram, I shared it when I had joined the shoulders and I put it on a hanger and put it like that. And like, I swear over 50 people were like, I would wear it like that with a long sleeve, like button up collared shirt underneath. And it's so funny because my daughter like is looking at clothes like that. I'm like, that's so 90s. It's like the Clueless clothes, you know, a little vest over top. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everything is coming back again. But yeah, you could totally do that. Oh, Kat says, sounds like a knit weekend sweater along. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm super, super, super happy with it, y'all. Look at that. Oh, look at the line. You can see the line. Don't wait 3 years to finish your projects. Your gauge will change. And to all those knitters that told me that, you were right. But let's just hope it all loosens up and stretches out when I block it. It should be okay. Marge says, I love the drop shoulder. Isn't it cute? Yeah. And it knits up pretty. Let me stop. I'm here like it knits up super quickly. Only 3.5 years. It does though. Like if you sat down and cranked it out, especially, remember the pattern calls for worsted weight, which is thicker than what I used. I used DK weight yarn. If I use, and actually that's probably what I'm gonna do. I think I will use a worsted weight yarn the next time I make it, and it'll whip up even faster. Yeah, super cute. Super, super cute. Okay. All right. Oh, Anne is asking, I'll repeat the name of the pattern. The pattern is called The Weekender. And it's by Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits is her knitting business name. Her name is Andrea Mowry. It's a super popular pattern. Like literally just type into Google Weekender sweater pattern. And it's on her website and she sells the pattern on Ravelry too. But OMG, and I think she has one. Yeah, Lizette. Are you on here, Lizette? I think Lizette said she was going to start working on the Weekender Light. So she does have a light version. Remember I said the Weekender is designed for worsted weight yarn. The Weekender Light, I think she revamped the pattern and put out the version where it's for fingering weight. Yeah, that's a little too thin for me. Socks are about as much. Socks or a shawl, that's it for fingering weight. I have not graduated to fingering weight sweaters yet, but if that's you, yep, Lizette's on here. Yeah, I think the Weekender Light calls for fingering weight yarn. That's super thin. So just remember, the thinner the yarn, the longer it will take you to make the project. Marge, the name of the pattern is called The Weekender, okay? And I think we have the link in the video description box for it too, okay? Thank you. It's time for yarn says, I haven't built up the courage to make clothing yet. You did a great job. So let this be your inspiration. Just jump in. And people ask me all the time, like, how come you're not scared of this? Like, who taught you? Nobody, I just jump in. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. You play with cute yarn. I'm never afraid of stuff like that. You know, I just literally dive in and you'll learn the whole way as you do it and you make mistakes and you mess up here and you mess up there. You are learning all the way through, right? Think about when you make something and you sell your product, like even if it's a zippered pouch. You're not selling it for just that zippered pouch. How many years of mistakes, of wasted time, wasted fabric, wasted money on the projects that you made before that you did not get or you didn't have successful results with, right? At the level where you are able to just like boom, take the pattern or excuse me, the fabric, the zipper, and make everything and make a perfect little zipper pouch. It's not just that one pouch. It's 10 years of trial and error and mess ups and wasted time and wasted fabric and wasted stuff that got you there. So it's just part of the process for me. It's a journey, y'all. Just jump in. Maybe start off with a cheaper yarn, but I'm not a huge fan of that either because if it is a cheaper yarn, if it's itchy on my hands, I'm not going to want to work with it. If it's cheaper yarn, even if I get through the whole project and then I don't want to wear it because I don't like the yarn, then what's the point, you know? So I just go all in. And spend, you know, $25 per skein of yarn. And for this one, actually, I'm on the, oh, this is another thing. I'm on the last skein. So don't do like me either. I guesstimated. You know what I'm saying? Do the proper math. Go by the pattern, see what the designer tells you, how much yardage you need to make your stuff. Because remember, if a pattern tells you you need 750 yards of this weight yarn to make it, and then you start going, well, I don't like 3/4 sleeves. I want to make them long. I don't like that the body finishes 15 inches long. I want it to finish 17 and a half. If you start making these modifications and changes to it, that is lengthening it, making it bigger, maybe going from a low neckline to a turtleneck. All this stuff requires more yarn. And if you're only buying what the pattern tells you to buy, but you're making changes to it, you need to make the changes to the amount of yarn that you're using too. So, all that to say, I hope I have enough for another sleeve in here. Oh, this is like the Vanessa comedy show today. But this is how I do it. I share with y'all all my mess ups and troubleshooting tips that I can. And then at the end of the day in June, you'll probably see me wearing this and I'll be like, all those mistakes, all those flops, and it all worked out. Technically, I guess you could have weighed the yarn because you pick up stitches for the sleeve. You could have weighed your remaining yarn and then done the math to go half and half. And then, you know, okay, especially if you're a little bit short, you can say, I'm going to go half and half, and then you weigh the yarn and say, okay, I'm going to knit the sleeve until I use up that amount of yarn because that's half, and then stop. right? So you have to accommodate the sleeve and then that bit of ribbing, and you need to come to the end of that right at the halfway point so that the other half you use for the second sleeve, and that way you get two sleeves that are equal, right? Worst case scenario for me will be, yes, I have one cute sleeve and then I go to make the other one and it's not quite as long. Then we'll have a problem. I mean, if it's like 2 rows off, you know what I'm gonna do. Say, I don't care and just leave it. But if it's like 3 inches off, I might just roll the other one up. I don't know. But I don't let things like that really bring me down. I just want to get through the project. And I guarantee you there will be something cute here for me to share with you once it's fully done. Okay. Mary Grace says fingering weight might take her 6.5 years. You know it. If DK took me 3 years, you might take 6, right? Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh, Jay White says, I am cursed. I only like knitting with fingering. You know, I think it has something to do with working with that yarn often, because when I first started knitting socks, at first I was like, oh, you know, I went from super bulky to worsted, and that was thin, okay? And then when I grabbed fingering weight yarn, I was like, this is kind of thin. I felt like, I started, okay, let me make a shawl first, because it was fingering weight yarn, but US size, like 6 needles. So I'm thinking larger needles, this will whip up quicker because it was a lacier shawl. I was like, let's try it. By the time I was halfway through that shawl, I was like, fingering is not that thin. Like it's regular. And I remember thinking when I picked it up, like I'm literally knitting with thread and needles. That's how it felt, you know? So once I started knitting socks, I remember making one sock and being like, the yarn feels thick. Like I got conditioned to feeling like the fingering weight yarn felt like worsted to me, you know? But now that I've been making, you know, working on this whole sweater using a puffy, like a really soft and fluffy DK, I grab like a skein of fingering and I'm like, whoo, baby, no ma'am, put it right back. So it's one of those things where you need to like use it for a little bit so your mind gets tricked into thinking, oh, this feels kind of thick. I'll crank through this project, even though you know you won't. Okay. Dustin says, if you can, always buy 2 skeins extra than you think. Worst case, and you end up not needing them, you'll have a matching scarf or a shawl. So you're going the super conservative route and saying 2 extra skeins. I often hear people say grab 1 extra skein. And I will say this, this DK yarn, and of course, because this is like an indie dyed yarn, Night Owl Fibers is who I bought it from at the Houston Fiber Fest show that I went to 3 years ago when I bought it and started it. And it's her, you know, like if I run low, I can't just go to a craft store and pick up another ball of yarn. You know what I mean? Like if this is the colorway, I had to buy them all. So she had 5 skeins DK, I bought all 5. And my friend Stacy and I estimated it, and I thought, okay, we have more than what I will likely need. This is the last ball I had left. So I wound up this skein and I did this. I should have. Now I feel a little bit, I think so. Especially since I pulled back 6 inches. I was like, oh great, I'm saving some more yarn. And I was able to finish it to here. Ooh, y'all, I'm gonna have to weigh this and see. I can even run it through my yarn counter thing that I have that will measure it, but I don't want to cut the yarn either. We're just gonna risk it, y'all. I'm gonna tubular bind off here, and I think it needs 2 setup rows, so that'll eat up some more yarn. Then bind it off, and then I'll pick up my other sleeve, and let's hope they match. All right. Oh, Lizette says she hasn't started her weekender. Like, no worries, girl. Let me know when you do. You're going to be like, I've been working on it 3 weeks, and you're going to have like the bottom hem done with that fingering weight way too thin. Okay. So yeah, but obviously get extra, especially if you think you're going to modify it. Say it's a t-shirt and you're thinking as you're knitting, you're like, oh, this would be cute as a sweater. And you make longer sleeves. You better make sure you have extra yarn. So yes, 1 or 2 extra skeins would be good. All right. All right. Okay, let me grab a sip here. Oh, look at me. I'm almost to an hour, so 48 minutes in. Okay. And then, so that was the yarn, or that was the sweater. Oh, this is another thing I wanted to talk about. Because, you know, everywhere I see like podcasts and stuff and people that knit garments, especially with indie dyed yarns, that line is really bothering me. They tell you to alternate rounds. So like you would have, instead of just one ball of the yarn, you would have two. And you would go around once and then swap to the other ball, like without cutting it, and then knit with the other one, and then go back and do one. And the reason for that is because there's so much variation in the uniqueness of the hand-dyed yarn that not every skein is going to be the same. So sometimes people are like, oh, if you don't want to see like the color pooling in one area or the other or whatever, you know, that's extra for me. So I didn't do that. And I think as far as the color goes, I mean, it looks pretty even to me. You can tell that it's speckled and that there's some gradation kind of stuff. You see how the sleeve has like more white, and like this last skein has more, I would say maybe some areas of the yarn didn't take the full gray that the others did. And I love that. So I guess maybe some people wouldn't like the way that this looks. I'm not sure. But to me, no issues there. So just know that if you see like too much pooling, and of course this is going to depend on the color of the yarn that you chose. If it's like really long, big streaks of color, then you may want to change it up. But for me, this stuff is all about the pop, the fun colors. And when I'm wearing this, trust me, nobody's going to be like, I mean, when you look at something like this, you're going to be like, wow, where'd you get that? You know, hey, I like that sweater. I made it. That's what I'm making this for, to wear something comfy and to be like, I made it. So if you feel like that, you know, and it's like a mottled kind of color like this with little speckles that are, the color is kind of like all over the place. So you can't really see it. All that to say that no, I did not alternate every other round. There were 5 skeins she had. I bought all 5 and I just wound them up in no particular order and started knitting. That's what I did because I don't really care and it still looks great. Okay. Yeah, Dustin says that's really well blended yarn if you didn't alternate rows. Wow, isn't that? I feel like when I started it, then I watched a couple podcasts and they were like, yeah, you definitely want to alternate rows. And I'm thinking, who? What? Oh, nah. I had already gone too far in. And I kept pulling it back and looking at it in the light like, I don't really see any pooling or any striping. I'm like, I'm going to keep going because it looks good to me. So, yes. So Dustin has another tip for us. He says, if you hate alternating like I do, you can knit normally and then start alternating for the last 10 to 15 rows when you change the skeins. Oh, I see. And it works out awesome to make gradients. So you just knit, 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 knit. And when you're running low on it, then you start alternating just like the last 10 to 15 rows instead of alternating every single other. That's too much for me. Like I could not alternate every other row. I don't care how bad the pooling is. I don't think that will make me alternate rows. It's not enough to make me alternate rows. Okay. Ooh, Lizette says that she made the love note instead for now. So the love note is another sweater. And that one's on my to-do list, Lizette. People have made that. I feel like I've seen it in every weight of yarn. Amazing colors, speckled. I've seen people make it holding mohair with the strand of wool too. It just looks amazing. I've seen people make it and leave out the kind of lacy yoke part. This girl that I follow called Prof Pearl, like Professor Pearl. She's like a math education professor. I feel like she recently had a knit along on her YouTube channel for the love note. So if that's something that you want to check out and you maybe want to start knitting garments, check that out. Her channel is Professor Pearl, Prof Pearl. I think she's on Instagram and on YouTube. Yeah. She had a knit along for that love note sweater. And the love note is by Tin Can Knits. Is that right? Somebody correct me. There's so many names, patterns, designers, companies. All right. Okay. Oh, Mary says, I love your enthusiasm. Makes me want to create something. Yeah, just jump in, grab a ball of yarn and make something. All right. So I feel like that is all I have here on my list. I know that last time I had mentioned and I showed y'all, remember the Corinne Cardi for the Knit Collage Spring Knit Along? I'm behind. I have not started. Well, let me stop. I started watching the videos and I started winding my balls of yarn, the fabric yarn. I'll show you how this comes. It's too late to join already, but you can still buy yarn and stuff from her website. So I don't know if y'all recall the little granny square. The Corinne Cardi is one of the projects that is going on in that knit along or that make along that features both knitting and crochet. So that's when I'm going to get started. Hopefully I'll have something to show y'all in June as I go through the videos and participate in the knit along or the make along, since it's both. They come like this. It's like a little hank. And I'm going to wind them all into little balls because they need to be like this so that you can start crocheting with them. So I have a lot of prep work to do for all these. And then the actual body of my sweater is going to be this in their Serenity. I think this is the Serenity. Yeah, in the paprika color. They actually put together a Crafty Gemini colorway. So I have a bunch of these hanks that I need to wind up too. Because remember, when your yarn comes like this, but these I won't do by hand. This I will put on my wooden yarn swift and crank onto the ball winder, the cake winder, for when I start to make it. So there is a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of prep work before I can get started making it. So that's what my goal is, to wind up not all the big colors of the main body color of it, but definitely these little guys and maybe one of these, so I can start, you know, working on the videos for the knit or for that make along and following along with the instructions. So for June, I should have some more to show you on that, and definitely this thing should be done. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Yes, happy Mother's Day weekend if you're celebrating this weekend. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I will see y'all in June for sure for Fiber Friday, but if you're into the sewing and quilting kind of stuff, I will be back with another episode of Whip Wednesday, which is a work in progress Wednesdays that I do on Wednesdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday. We had to cancel this week's one. We just had a lot going on here as usual, so I may even end up changing the time on that. We'll see. But this is super fun. I will be back in June. I can't wait to tell y'all how my circular sock machine knitting retreat weekend goes, that first weekend in June. So remember that we're going to be moving the Fiber Friday, not the first Friday in June, but we're going to do it the second one after my retreat so that I can tell y'all all about it and show you whatever goodies I bought and all that stuff, okay? So thanks, everybody. Enjoy your rest of your weekend, and I will see y'all again. Remember to add yourself to the email list so that you can keep up with all the happenings. If you want to find out about the fiber stuff, when we start the crochet along for the little market tote and all that, I will be sending out that information in the Facebook group and to the fiber list, okay? So thanks again for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I will see y'all later. And now I need to walk over here and turn this off because I don't have a helper today. All right. Bye, everybody.